Welcome to Dwell on These Things, a podcast of Dwell Community Church in Columbus, Ohio, where we discuss whatever is honorable, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent, and praiseworthy. All right, it's Paul back again, hosting with my friend and colleague, Josh Benadum. Hello, Josh.
Good to be here, Paul.
I was told to invite you that you were kind of laying around the office, not doing much lately. So
Yeah. No, I mostly just sort of turn the fireplace on and off. That's my main role at Dwell these days.
In the spirit of putting you to work, then, do you like to introduce our guest today?
Absolutely, yeah. So today on the podcast we have Dr. Tim Benadum and Marjie Benadum, who are both missionaries in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, long-term members of our church, and most importantly, they are also my parents.
Mm-hmm. Some familiarity.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks, Tim and Marjie, for coming. Welcome back. Is it correct to say that you are back home or that you're away from home right now?
We have homes on two sides of the world.
Dual citizenship?
Not quite. The Cambodians have been asking us lately. I don't know, something about the 20-year mark where they say, so why aren't you a citizen yet? And we just need to take the test. And
have you guys thought about getting Cambodian citizenship?
We have.
Really?
Well, it would make our life a lot easier coming and going because we'd have passports. We wouldn't have to do annual visa and that kind of thing. But,
man, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
We often say that we live in two worlds because they are so different.
Yes.
Cool. 20 years, you said?
Yes.
How long were you there, Josh?
I was only there for about 4.
So just your latter childhood.
Yeah. No, it was basically just high school for me.
Benadums, I'm wondering if you could help our listeners understand, why would someone choose to give up American way of life, the standard of living? You had kids and a dog and an American house and a doctor's salary to move to Cambodia. Why do that?
Yeah, that's a question we get commonly. Our main answer is that we were called by God. And because of our faith and really the Great Commission of making disciples of all nations, we felt very passionate that we wanted to do that. And we had to decide whether we will do that here in the U.S. or whether we would do it cross-culturally. And I think God gave us a series of experiences that helped us consider doing something radical like moving overseas.
Yeah.
It was kind of a gradual thing, but the short answer is that we were called by God. The long answer is that I came to know Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior in medical school. Jeff Gordon, one of the elders that used to be here at Dwell, now church planting in Pittsburgh, led me to Christ. He also was a great encourager of going cross-cultural missions when that time came.
You went cross-cultural to Pittsburgh. It's
Exactly.
pretty big.
Ohio to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Similar.
There's
difference.
language barriers, but there's also football team barriers. And those are almost just as difficult to overcome.
Absolutely. So we felt led for cross-cultural missions really back in 1986 when we did a mission trip to Mexico. We felt like, well, maybe this is something that God has for us.
You sensed that, huh?
We sensed it even back then, and we thought, well, I am a doctor, and Marjie's an educator, and we seemed like we had some skills that we could bring to the table to go cross-cultural. But our passion had always been is to bring people to Christ and to make disciples, plant churches. And that DNA was really instilled in us at Zenos, now Dwell Community Church. A lot of people say that they're called to a certain geographic location. We never felt that. We felt that we were called for cross-cultural missions, but what that looked like, we weren't really clear or where at. And so we waited until Dwell had something on the docket where they wanted to send a team, and it turned out initially that it was the Caribbean, which we thought was awesome. We were so excited, but then they changed.
Josh was excited.
Yeah.
Probably.
I don't know if it was a bait and switch.
I don't think I knew.
No, it's true. We weren't talking to the kids about that yet.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a bait and switch. But then they said, no, it does begin with a C, but it's Cambodia. And we had to look on the map where
It has a
Cambodia
coastline,
was.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does.
And Josh, I remember when you were on the show a few months ago, you said that you felt like when you left that God showed you that you guys should go.
Yeah, I was originally super opposed to the move, and I think that for my folks, the fact that I was so much older kind of went against conventional wisdom for whether someone should move their family at that time. And so, but I was super opposed to it. But I really went through a spiritual process when I was, 10, 11 years old. In many ways, it was kind of like my first experience, like wrestling and dealing with God over the question of, is this something that I should get on board with and submit to? And so it was really tough. It was really, really hard. The fruit of it was awesome because I went to Cambodia fully believing that it was my choice to go, that I'd chosen, to be there rather than being forced. I think that ended up being super advantageous for me. It was something which a lot of other missionary kids that I knew didn't actually have.
More resentful, maybe.
Much more resentful, feeling like they were just sort of caught up in their parents' vision and things like that. But I never felt that way. But the cost of that was a year plus of turmoil and kind of an uncertainty, I think, as I was working through that.
I remember that time because anytime we brought up missions and that we thought God was calling us to the mission field, Josh would get really upset and wouldn't talk about it. And we challenged him to say, you're in this cell group in your junior high. Have you shared it with your cell group? And even their cell leader, I think, challenged him as well. And he hadn't done that. And so when he started to share that with the cell group and they began to pray for him, I remember you saying that it seems like every teaching that God is bringing up missions. And I think the cool thing that I remember, and this is something I just kind of burned in my brain and I thought was a confirmation, is that after we'd done our field visit in May of 2000, Josh and I took a walk in August, and I said, Josh, I really feel like God is calling us to the mission field. And he said, well, Dad, if there's the need and God is calling us, I think we should go. And I thought, oh my gosh, God has done a work in this young man over the past year.
Has Josh always been just super mature? Is that what
Well, how long is this podcast?
That's what it seems like. Looking back, what did you guys end up giving up that you didn't even reckon?
Gosh, I'm not even sure. It's more like what we got that we didn't expect to get. I mean, we knew when you're making that decision, what you're having to let go of, and mostly it comes down to just relationships, and you're not really letting go of them, but just moving far away from people, right? I think we thought that we were taking our kids away from some opportunities, like all these opportunities that they would have in America. And then when we got there and they got involved in the international school, and I was actually teaching high school art there part-time while I was studying language. And I think when we started to see all that God had there in terms of expanding the whole family's worldview by meeting people from all over the world, as well as just rubbing shoulders with Cambodians who the Cambodian believers are choosing to trust God with their lives without all the safety nets that we have in America,
The level of faith.
Yeah, the level of faith. And, that's really challenging, but it's refreshing and it's challenging. And it also is refining because you're like, wow, when I say I believe and I trust God with my life, it's saying that despite our circumstances. And I think that ended up being a really positive thing for the whole family, really.
As their mother, I was asking what you had to give up, and your mind goes straight to how would it affect my kids?
Yeah.
Is this going to hurt my children?
Yeah.
And instead you feel like it was a positive?
Yeah, I do. I mean, somebody, actually it was Beth Hemsworth, mentored me before I went to the field, and they had just come home with their kids that were in college. And she said to me, if your kids,
if your kids never learn to suffer, then there's no need for them to be dependent on God. I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
That is pretty powerful. I don't think I've ever heard that.
And, when she said it to me, I thought, it really hit me. But then I really experienced it later with the kids. We're just watching. It's not like it was easy all the time, but it was just really cool to see them challenged in their faith and to watch them grow.
Yeah, even the hard things.
Yeah. That's a criticism that I have of American culture now. We've lived outside it for 20 years, is the way we coddle our kids and the way we coddle.
No concept for suffering. And
and it's like, what are we teaching them?
Oh, that's a good quote. I think my wife teaches down at Harambe second grade. I might see if she'll put that across the room.
Yeah.
If you don't suffer, you'll never grow.
Yeah.
That'd be
I
good
don't
motto.
really see T-shirts like that.
Not really not a refrigerator magnet for sure.
Yeah.
Good perspective then.
Yeah.
I do think that just knowing something about our experience and your guys' experience, and I'm sure this is how it is whenever you enter any kind of new venture like this in faith, but there may have been things you didn't realize you were giving up. There certainly were challenges that you didn't anticipate that presented themselves. I mean, you had no idea that you'd find yourself a few years in, leading the team, like being in charge of the mission team, the attrition that you experience, seeing other missionaries struggle and drop off the field, all of those things. I mean, and even though us kids, even though we did go, we were willing and our family remained unified, it was still a pretty spiritually impoverished environment for us as high school students. And we all struggled with our spirituality, with our faith throughout the entirety of high school. By the grace of God, we're all walking with him now. But there were unforeseen challenges that you guys, faced and have continued to face for sure.
Yeah, that is true. When we were called to Cambodia, I had in my mind what that looked like, and I was going to use my medical skills, as I told before, to help proclaim Christ and disciple. But when I got to the field and we had language learning, and it was a young field, and they needed somebody that had some gray hair probably to lead the team, and that was me. And so I ended up being...
A little bit. You had a little bit of gray hair on
Just a
gray,
little.
gray and white on the sides.
Yeah, that's right.
And after 2 years,
That's right.
you were totally white.
Not really.
Yeah. So then I ended up, being the field director for about 5 years. And it was a great experience, and I think God used it just as he used our home church leadership to now build Mercy Medical Center to make it what it is today. God used all that experience, and part of that was some difficult years, but yet being able to gather people into teams and send them out into people groups was great experience.
Great.
But then 2009 is when we really started focusing on Mercy Medical Center.
The bulk of the work you've done in Phnom Penh is through the Mercy Medical Center. Could you guys tell us about that and sort of the history of it, how it got started? And
So in 2009, I'd been doing part-time medical work, but I'd been the full-time field director for World Team. So then we transitioned in 2009 to be focused on Mercy Medical Center. And we had been in a small clinic, and we decided that we wanted to grow that ministry. At that time, we were in the military hospital, believe it or not, a Christian clinic in a Buddhist military hospital. We thought it was quite interesting that God would put us there. But we got kind of kicked out for a variety of reasons. One was that we weren't making profit, and they needed our space. So we had a big decision of what to do, of how do we continue this ministry. And at that time, we were in a 2-story house north of Phnom Penh. And part of our clinic, we had an isolation ward, which was our balcony. So our patients that had tuberculosis actually were on our balcony. We figured that was the best place to keep them isolated and well ventilated. That's when we came up with our 4P missions statement. We started thinking about what do we want this to look like in the future. And by the grace of God, we actually got some land in the south part of Phnom Penh that we could build a hospital. We had several different options, but that seemed to be what God was pointing us to. So our 4P mission was that we wanted to proclaim Christ in word and deed. That's why we came to Cambodia, the proclamation of the gospel. And we can do that through a variety of ways, and we were going to do that through a mission training hospital. The second P was to provide quality health care to the poor and underserved. And our third P was to prepare and to disciple national healthcare workers. And our fourth P was to partner with like-minded people. And that 4P mission has served us well as we keep going back and saying, whatever decisions we make at Mercy Medical Center, are we in line with our mission? We don't want to have the mission drift. We want to be dead on mission. So we've tried to teach our Cambodian staff the 4P mission and to evaluate all our services through that grid. And that's been really exciting to see the growth. We built the medical center, which I thought was going to be the only building we built, but God had other plans, so we ended up building 4 different buildings. We went from a staff of 20 to a staff of 100 of nationals.
Wow.
We went
4 connected buildings, or are they?
They are connected.
They're all connected.
on
Same
a
piece of
tight piece
land.
of property that was donated to us. Yeah.
Heavy populated area, or is it?
It's a bit rural, but Phnom Penh's growing in that direction. It's south of
Yeah.
Phnom Penh, and so it's in a village called Jumpuk Ai.
We are a referral-based hospital where we have referring partners that bring patients to Mercy Medical Center. It was part of our
No
strategy.
walk-ins.
We do now. During COVID, we started receiving a few walk-ins for a variety of reasons, but mainly we have stuck to people being referred to our hospital so that we can work with referring partners to help with church planting. Because again, that's part of our goal is not only to bring people to Christ, but the church plant. So the way we do that is that we have a variety of Cambodian churches, Christian organizations that send patients to us from all 25 provinces that we're able to minister to physically and spiritually and psychologically, because we have a good counseling center as well now.
Cool.
And we're able then to work with our referring partners to have them do the follow-up. And we also have our own spiritual impact team, 10 members that actually directly church plant. So we do indirect church planting with our referring partners, and we do direct church planting with our spiritual impact team at Mercy Medical Center.
So just as an example, one story that we have, some of our referring partners work with tribal groups as well as Khmer. And there's a tribal group way up north in Cambodia near the Lao border called the Kravet tribe. And initially, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, we had 2 brothers that were like upper teenage years that came that were sick. And they were referred to us by YWAM missionaries that were working with that tribe. And both those young men came to Christ while they were being treated at MMC.
The missionary was having a hard time having any entry point into this tribal group. And so there was really no Christians at that time.
These 2 brothers, it turns out their father was in an influential position in the tribe. And so the father became a Christian and the whole family. And now that tribe is 15% Christian.
And it started with the guys that came to Christ
yes,
at
at MMC. Yeah.
Really?
And
That's
They
awesome.
brought it back, the gospel back.
yeah,
to
they
you.
brought it back. So we really feel like our
Praise
referring.
God.
Yeah. So, and
So cool.
just to give you a perspective, the rest of Cambodia is considered about 2% Christian. So to have 15% in one tribe is huge. And I guess for me, I feel like there's 2 things. People ask us a lot about our direct church planting, like how many churches have your team planted? And that's important, and it's awesome what's going on with that. But I feel like in 50 years when we're looking back, or 100 years looking back, when I think about what's most impactful, it's like only God knows that. And we didn't know when we saw those 2 young men from that tribe what he was going to do with that. The other thing that I think is really having great impact is our residency program training our young doctors. We only take Christian doctors that are coming out of medical school. We depend on partners who work in the medical schools doing outreach. So the partnership stuff is really important. And we have these young Christian doctors that we get for 3 years, sometimes 4.
Yeah, we have a family medicine residency program we started in 2012. And so we have 4 Christian national doctors in that program each year.
And we have several that have stayed on as attending doctors at MMC. But I feel like the discipleship, like we have a spiritual curriculum that they go through as well, with Bible study and discipleship, and then also medical training. I feel like that's going to be a great part of our impact because one of the emphases that we have, for example, if somebody applies to the residency and they say, I just want to be a better doctor so I can go do more training in another country and stay in that country, we say, no, we're not going to train you then because that's not why we're here. We're here to train Cambodians who want to go out into provinces in Cambodia and partner with the church and move the gospel forward.
In 2009, when we were thinking about building this mission hospital, I talked to a missionary who had built several mission hospitals in Africa. And he asked me a question, how do you find success for your mission hospital? And I said, well, I want to see people come to Christ. I want to see disciples made. I want to see churches planted, and I want to see people healed holistically, physically, psychologically, and spiritually. He says, that's great. Measure those things, but don't run your hospital like a church because that's all donation-based. Run it with good business principles, and that's what we've done. And so we're not a free hospital. We do charge. We try to cost subsidize, and we have an income score, depending on your income. And we mainly treat low-income patient population. And we're able to bring about 70% into the door for our budget. So 30%,
No way.
we are
Yeah.
donor-based and cost-subsidized. But that helps us to be sustainable. But one of the other things he said was,
That's much higher than I'd expect, 70%.
Well,
yeah,
that-
no,
Yeah.
it is high.
yeah, and most people say that, and we're really grateful. And I'm grateful for his leading in that and guiding us. But the other thing is that he said, you're looking for sustainable impact in all areas, not just financially. That's what a lot of people say, well, are you financially sustainable? He goes, that's really too small a vision. You want to have sustainable impact spiritually. So how are your services and the things that you do at Mercy Medical Center, how is that sustainable with our church planning, with our disciple making, in all areas? So you want the whole thing, and our patient care, So we look at those things every year, and we've got a 10-year vision of what we'd like to see Mercy Medical Center become, and we're trying to develop those principles in that.
I just think it's really interesting because that's really how a lot of serving God works and a lot of ministry works, where we're going to track and work really hard at the things that we know are directly within our control. Like, we are going to disciple people. We are going to work with the people that we have and try to plant churches that reach people. And you guys do that through MMC. MMC is a platform for planting churches and making disciples. But then also we recognize that if we do the things faithfully that we can control, God is going to do a lot more that's beyond our control. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I just feel like what you guys are describing with your ministry, it just seems like you guys have a grasp and an appreciation for both of those things, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
There's so many stories like that. We had a man come who needed help medically. We had one of the Phnom Penh churches refer him because he didn't have a referring partner. Turns out that he was a village chief in one of the villages in the province up north. So we took care of him and his medical needs. He came to know Christ during that time because he had to stay in our inpatient ward. He went back up to his village, and then he came back 3 months later and said, I've got 5 groups going on now, and I've been telling about Jesus, but I don't know anything more than what you told me.
Wow.
I need some help. So we were able to work with the Phnom Penh church that had actually referred him, and then they sent actually a national couple up there, and that exploded into, now I think it's 15 churches and over 500 believers. Again, an indirect impact, but something that we see all the time that's really encouraging.
So one of the issues with mission hospitals, and we did this research when we started, is that a lot of times they just open their doors and anybody can come, right? And then what happens is you really don't have a good way of assessing their actual need, for one thing, because you don't know them well.
Right.
And you also don't have the opportunity to do spiritual follow-up. So that's why the referring partner system is so important. And we didn't even realize, actually, when we started that referral partner system, how important it was going to become.
In America, we think of a primary care physician making a referral, but you're talking about churches referring
Churches and mission organizations, Christian organizations.
And we actually interviewed each church or organization when they want to be a referring partner. And they agree, we have kind of a contract that you will agree to help the member or whoever you refer to at Mercy Medical Center, help with some of their costs, and do the spiritual follow-up. And so there is a contract that
That's
there's
great.
that we want to partner together. This is the reason we're doing this.
Are most of these Cambodian-led partners?
Actually, now they are. When we first started, it was mostly mission organizations, but we've really encouraged the missionaries from these organizations that as they established Khmer leadership that they felt were well-grounded and that they trusted, that gave them the opportunity to become the referring partner themselves.
And some of our impact team members meet with these referring partners and teach them how to use it strategically to grow their church. So not just to send their members or their family members, but no, how can you use this to grow your church and to widen the body of Christ in your sphere of influence?
And with a lot of Cambodians do it, because you're saying that you've intentionally hired staff that are Cambodian Christians
Yeah.
who are serving and sharing the gospel with these people and working with the partners.
Yeah.
Is the ultimate goal to step back as Western Americans and handing over this to Cambodians?
Yeah.
I mentioned our 10-year goal, our 2030 now vision, that we really want to be a fully staffed, fully functional mission training hospital that is Cambodian-led, and that we are expanding our ministry into the provinces through regional outreach clinics. So not to grow the hub, but actually to grow regional outreach centers with our Cambodian doctors and nurses who have a burden to go back to their home province to minister. And so we would be kind of a referring hospital, but help them, but they have to be standing independently.
Which is one of the things I think our Cambodian leaders are very happy about, the fact that we're only 30% donor dependent. There's a lot of organizations in Cambodia, a lot of development work going on, and they know that a lot of those organizations are 100% donor dependent, and they do not feel very secure with that for obvious reasons. And so I think it gives them that feeling of like, okay, we're learning how to make this as sustainable as we can, and they like that. Right now, Tim and I are very focused on raising up Cambodian leadership. That's a big focus for us because we are looking to pass the baton, not throw it. Sometimes people will say to us, oh, yeah, can't the nationals do it? You know, you guys just need to get out of the way. You need to leave or whatever. But we were just talking with Brett because he just visited the ministry, and he said, wow, I just didn't realize the scope and scale of what you guys are doing. And I think realizing then that that's a process in the same way that our older elders here really were intentional and deliberate over a long period of time, raising up the next generation of leaders in this church. And we watched that actually and thought that's what we need to do. And that is what we're working on. So, we appreciate prayer for that.
Our senior leadership team is over 50% Cambodians. And so I always tell them, I said, you can always outvote us. You know, there's the expatriates are a minority, and that's the way we want it. And we actually want to see that even grow.
Are they eager to take the baton?
Eager, I don't know if I would say eager only because they just are building their confidence. But I think one thing that is really cool is that, you know, coming out of a fatalistic worldview, even for the people that have become Christians, they still come out of this culture and this worldview that's fatalistic. And so part of that fatalism is the idea about education and even about sharing of power is like, that's very contradictory to the Cambodian mindset. So for them, just for them to believe that we really do want to pass this over to them and to invest in them, and that we even want their opinion and we want them to think critically and encourage that critical thinking and that creative thinking and go with their ideas, that's a process because it's not normal in the culture. And the longer they're with us and the more they see that we're serious about that, which is really a biblical perspective on human beings, right? Is that we were born to be creative and
for
to think critically.
Significant accomplishments.
Yes,
right?
exactly. So
it took us years for them to challenge our decisions, and now they do.
Even though we invited it all the time.
Right. And so I think
Now you're getting what you asked for.
Yeah, exactly.
and
Yeah.
if they're going to take over the ministry, then they have to have the critical thinking and being able to challenge.
The missionaries that have come in the last 5 to 10 years know from the start when they come in that you are under a leadership team that is majority Cambodian.
You're here to support what they're doing.
Yeah, you're here to support, train, disciple, that kind of thing, but not necessarily lead.
You know, it's a different paradigm than the stereotypical view of missions. Mm-hmm. The Western church coming in and leading and telling people how to do things.
Yeah, and that's actually, again, a worldview issue, is that as Westerners, we really do grasp that concept of critical and creative thinking, probably overboard the other direction to where we just think that we have all the best ideas. And So
2030, you guys hand off the baton and maybe send them to Caribbean? Is that the next?
Yep. Back to Haiti after all.
It'll actually be a little sooner. Right now we have a 3-year plan. So Tim's 64 and I'm 60. And we have a plan that 3 years from now we would like to be out of the roles that we're in. Tim is the CEO and I'm the Director of Communications and Development. And we would like to be supporting, discipling, teaching, encouraging, but we would like to be out of our roles because we see that it's a natural progression, but, you know, it's something we need to move towards in order for them to feel confident about taking the reins. So we're doing that a little at a time right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
This has been really interesting discussion. Sounds like fascinating work and glorifying to God. You guys are winning people's hearts with the example of Christ, loving people, meeting needs. And that's great if people listening in have a burden to learn more about Mercy Medical Center or how they can support. Where would you direct them?
We have a website, which is actually being a bit overhauled right now, but it's still up, mercymedcambodia.org. And then there's a lot of links off of there to different things as well. We do have a U.S. nonprofit, which the headquarters is here in Columbus. And we have a board of trustees that are here in Columbus that are mostly from Dwell. We just have one person from another church. And yeah, that's where we would send them. And probably the best piece of literature that we put out every year, you can access through the website, is our annual report. It goes through the philosophy of ministry as well as the stories and statistics as well.
Through
the website. It'll be, the latest version was always on the website. There's a link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people can give to your ministry through the Dwell website,
Yes.
through the Global Partners Fund as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Josh?
I'm deeply, deeply grateful for my parents. I was reflecting on this recently, looking at my own kids and just thinking about their spiritual development, my hope for them. And I'm just really grateful. I mean, I just feel like I've been handed so many things that I didn't do anything to deserve or to earn. And I think the spiritual heritage of my family and the resources of like the community God's put me in and stuff. And I didn't make any of those things, you know, they're just things that I've been given. And so I just felt humbled and deeply grateful and desiring to just to give both credit to God, but also to bring more people, you know, into this as well. So
We feel like we didn't miss out at all. As I've reflected on the last 20 years, there was an opportunity for us to get involved in cross-cultural missions. It was risky. Hudson Taylor says if there is no risk, that means you don't need any faith. So I think that's important. And to be able to live radically for Christ, it wasn't easy, and there were tough times, and we weren't like super spiritual giants. We made ourselves available, and I guess that's probably the message I would want people to hear is make yourself available for what God wants to do in your life, and don't be afraid to take risk. If you are doing something where you're trying to bring God glory, you don't have to worry. He will help you and guide you because He's on your side. He wants you to be successful in whatever endeavor you do for His kingdom. It says in Proverbs, you know, man makes his plans, but God guides our feet.
You know, ask the question, how did you come to make this choice to give up so much this last 20 years? And your answer is you didn't give anything up, that God's blessed this time and you wouldn't take it back. That's pretty amazing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very encouraging. Praise God. Last question. When you're in town, do you guys call Josh elder?
That's always a quandary for me, you know. I
It's
am
like-
his elder and he's my elder. It's a paradox.
Yeah, what do you do there?
I prefer Reverend.
There we go. All right. Thanks so much, guys. I'm grateful for your time during your furlough. I know you're busy, and you too, Josh. I know there's a lot of planning going on and changes. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks and prayers as well to all who are representing God's love through the Mercy Medical Center in Phnom Penh. And as mentioned, for more information about how to support the Mercy Medical Center and Dwell's other global partners, check out dwellcc.org/missions on the web. And if you enjoyed the good things discussed in this podcast and want to hear more, click the subscribe or follow button. Until then, press on.